This is part 2 of session 18, and it is time to set the record straight with Yahweh. So let's start. If you remember from session 16, there was something that we need to clarify with Yahweh when we talked about them being from the Orion group. And now in this part of session 18, they talked about Yahweh being from the Confederation. And that clarification I kind of went through in session 16, part 3, I believe, when I just made a short clarification. But now we're going to get into the meat of how Ra talked about Yahweh and who they really are and everything that they did here on Earth. It gets confusing because, as you'll see in this video, they manifested in different times, and it was also hijacked by the Orion group at some point, and it's all going to be clarified here. So hopefully this is going to shed some more light on Yahweh. Remember, Yahweh is the biblical God that is considered, its own name is considered to be unpronounceable, unnamed. You can't really pronounce the name because of how sacred it is. So again, this is all biblical, but now we're going to talk about, the Yahweh social memory complex that they are, and within the context of the law of one, it makes sense for us to know that they are simply ETs or extraterrestrial higher density beings that were simply assisting and contributing to Earth. And of course the Orion group has always been mischievous in this. So we'll see what they did. We'll see what Yahweh started doing here. And without further ado, again, let's start with the first question that Don brings in session 18, where he says, can you tell me how Yahweh communicated to Earth's people? Ra says, this is a somewhat complex question. The first communication was what you call genetic. The second communication was the walking among your peoples to produce further genetic changes in consciousness. The third was a series of dialogues with chosen channels. Can you tell me what these genetic changes were and how they were brought about? Ra says, some of these genetic changes were in a form similar to what you call the cloning process. Thus, entities incarnated in the image of the Yahweh entities. The second was a contact of the nature you know as sexual, changing the mind-body-spirit complex through the natural means of the patterns of reproduction devised by intelligent energy of your physical complex. Now, to make a short pause here, Yahweh manifested in 3 different times, and we're talking about now the change or the assistance that they provided to the Mars population when they were transferred here. Yahweh was the one that did the cloning process from the Martians, basically 75,000 years ago, to bring them to the 3rd density cycle because they couldn't finish their cycle in Mars due to the climate change that they provoked and how they destroy their planet basically. So that was the first time that Yahweh came here on Earth to help basically the population, and that's the first intervention. We're gonna get a little bit more into what this meant. So we're gonna skip question 16 because in question 16 Don doesn't really ask the question straight, and Ra asked to be repeated or more insightful in terms of the question. So that's what it is. But so far, that's what we have. The second contact was of the nature, a sexual change in the mind-body-spirit complex through the natural means of patterns of reproduction. We're going to get into that too. So that's what we have so far. Yahweh is a social memory complex. Again, we're going to corroborate this, working for the Confederation of planets, and they came here to assist in the transfer of Martians to Earth, so they can start their cycle here. But because they were in Mars, they had a different body, and they had to adapt to this, and that's why they did the genetic modification, because Earth has a different gravity and other patterns of vibration that they had to adapt to. So it's interesting that they say that it's they incarnated in the image of Yahweh, and this goes with the Bible saying that we're made of, I forget how you say it in English, but it's like the same resemblance, I think it is, of God, you know, in the Bible. So, all right, so let's go on. We're going to skip question 16. And in 17, Don clarifies and says, can you tell me the difference between the sexual programming, let us say prior to Yahweh's intervention and after intervention? Ra says, this is a question which we can only answer by stating that intervention by genetic means is the same no matter what the source of this change. Then Don says, can you tell me Yahweh's purpose in making the genetic sexual changes? Ra explains, the purpose 75,000 years ago, as you measure time, of the changes of subsequent to that time were of one purpose only, that to express in the mind-body complex those characteristics which would lead to further and more speedy development of the spiritual complex. Now, short pause here also. I'm not sure by what Ra means that no matter what the changes are, they come from the same. Let's just read that again, because that's the part that I'm not sure when they say that genetic means is the same no matter what the source of this change. This could be basically the vibration by which the planet makes genetic changes, and it doesn't matter what type of intervention by genetic means is, you know, it's the same because of the vibration of the planet. Again, I'm not sure here. I'm just trying to speculate a little bit on what that meant. But if you know anything about it and you want to share it, please go ahead, because that'll make, you know, better sense for me. And the other thing is that, so the first one was, like we said, to express those characteristics which would lead further more speedy development of the spiritual complex. Obviously here they needed to make those changes 75,000 years ago so they could be here and they would adapt to the planet. It's what I get from this. So let's go into the next question that Don has. It says, how did these characteristics go about leading to the more spiritual development? Ra says, the characteristics which were encouraged included sensitivity to all the physical senses to sharpen the experiences and the strengthening of the mind complex in order to promote the ability to analyze these experiences. Don says, when did Yahweh act to perform the genetic changes that Yahweh performed? Ra says, the Yahweh group worked with those of the planet you call Mars, 75,000 years ago, in what you call the cloning process. There are differences, but they lie in the future of your time-space continuum, and we cannot break the free will of law of Confucian. So this tells me a couple of things. The first one is, we already talked about how they assisted in the transfer of the Martians here to planet Earth 75,000 years ago at the beginning of the master cycle of third density. And that's the first part. Now the other part is that there are differences, but they lie in the future of our time space, and we cannot speak of, we cannot break the free will law of Confucian. Law of Confucian is always brought up when they talk about something that can infringe upon our understanding right now and what's about to come, that they know it's going to happen. Now, I'm going to speculate here with what I know that may happen. A lot of you are familiar with the concept of the solar flash, which just means an activation of the body. And Ra talks about dual bodies that people have been incarnating with for a long period of time already, where they can use this to transcend into four density. So these changes 75,000 years ago may mean something that will be activated into four density when we ascend to four density and third density stops being viable for or suitable for life, you know, in this human form. So I'm not sure if those differences that they call, because they lie in the future, meaning in the future, it has to do with the ending of the cycle. If we are at the peak of or at the end of the cycle, then the only future that I can see is just a transition or ascension into 4 density, and those changes might express themselves then. I've also heard that part of our DNA, which is not like 96 or 97% of our DNA, is called by geneticists junk DNA. And if we know anything about just biology, conventional biology, we know that nothing, is there for no reason, especially DNA. But also knowing it from this perspective of the universe where everything has a purpose, that DNA is there for a reason. Like I said, I've heard from other sources that this DNA, its activation that will happen for us to have a 4 density body, the people that will be part of the transition. So I'm not sure if that's what it is, but I'm just putting it out there because that's just what I reason out of this. Let's go to the rest of Ra's answer here. The 2,600 approximately time was the second time, we correct ourselves, 3,600 years approximately the time of attempts by those of the Orion group during this cultural complex. This was a series of encounters in which the ones called Anak were impregnated with the new genetic coding by your physical complex means so that the organisms would be larger and stronger. Okay, just to clarify here, even they make mistakes like we've said in the past. It's curious that they always make a mistake in the same date. It's like that date was very important 3,600 years ago. They always make that mistake. They correct themselves. So I don't know. It's curious. And the other thing is that this is where the Orion group started making their attempts to change and, as always, manipulate whatever it was being done by the Confederation. And this was a series of encounters in which the ones called Anak, it seems like the Anunnaki, which are also relevant to this time or this time frame, and they were impregnated with a new genetic coding of something that we're going to talk about now, where they created basically the giants that are also part of the Bible when they talk about giants mingling here with humans and so on. So I think that's what they mean here. So let's go on. Don is going to ask, why did they want larger and stronger organisms? Ra explains, the ones of Yahweh were attempting to create an understanding of the law of one by creating mind-body complexes capable of grasping the law of one. The experiment was a decided failure, from the view of the desired distortions due to the fact that rather than assimilating the law of one, it was a great temptation to consider the so-called social complex or subcomplex as elite or different, and better than other selves. This one of the techniques of service to self. So they created these bodies basically to have a better grasp of the law of one and teach it. But like we know from previous sessions at the beginning of the book, they talk about the pyramids being built for the process of ascension, and they trained the priests and priestess, I suppose, as well, to do this work for people to also ascend or create this understanding of the law of one. But just like before, they failed. They created an elite, and they made this complete changes that nobody expected, and this is going to bring something to the conclusion that I think is important to understand here. But I'll leave it, for that. They made the same mistake, or the same, like they say, naive mistake of believing that they could create some catalyst, for us to become more aligned with the law of one. This is just me, going on a rant here. Makes me think that in the past, when Atlantis fell and we had this catastrophe, and knowing that in the previous 2 major cycles of 25,000 years, nobody graduated 50,000 years ago, and 25,000 years ago, only about 120 people graduated, where there's supposed to be a massive amount of people graduating in second cycle. Now for third cycling, knowing that happened halfway, Atlantis happened, we can see that they were probably in distress into trying to help people graduate, no matter what. So the attempts became a lot stronger and more accentuated. This being one of them. It seems like, as we'll see in further sessions, they tried, at the beginning they didn't do much. They just left everything. Humans, the way they were, just leave them like that. Something happened and nobody graduated. So they started putting more effort. And 25,000 years ago, they saw that nothing happened again, or very little. And they continue to make changes to accelerate the process of ascending, because otherwise we just have millions of souls that are just doing all this work for nothing, because the purpose is ascending. It's not staying in third cycle, even though it's possible. It seems like it's going to happen anyways, at this point in time. But it's from their perspective, they are the gardeners, they are the guardians, they are supposed to make this happen in a way that that is productive for the Creator. They're all serving the Creator. Even the negatives one, who are serving the Creator in their own way, are providing the catalyst for that. So again, just not to sound a little doom and gloom with not many people graduating. I think there is a little bit of I don't like the word hope, but there should be a lot of faith in people like you watching this video, of course, because you're interested in this, to know that the Confederation has sent once again and approved all these wanderers. If you consider yourself a wanderer, then that's your mission. We are here to provide some sort of aid to people that have been doing this for a long time, and there are billions of people that are not aware of the changes that are coming. But we're not here to save anybody. We're just here to do what we have to do, and as long as we are in harmony and doing our inner work, that's all we can do. Anything else is just a plus. So again, not to go on a different rant here, but I just wanted to share that. So I think we can go to the next question, where Don says, then the Orion group, I'm not quite sure that I understand this. Do you mean that the Orion group produced this larger body complex to create an elite so that the law of one could be applied in what we call the negative sense? Ra clarifies this finally, and he says, or they say, this is incorrect. The entities of Yahweh were responsible for this procedure in isolated cases as experiments in combating the Orion group. However, the Orion group were able to use this distortion of mind-body complex to inculcate the thoughts of the elite rather than the concentrations upon the learning, teaching of oneness. Again, we see the Orion group making their mischief here by tinkering with what the Confederation does once again. What happened is that Yahweh didn't manifest as the Orion group. They just interfere with the knowledge or the people looking for Yahweh, the original Yahweh. Much like it happens in channeling, and where people start channeling an entity, a positive entity, or even a Confederation entity, and suddenly, because of their alignment and the questions that they ask and the information that they seek, the Confederation stops being of service because of what they're asking, and a negative entity can easily go in because of the free will of the channeler or instrument that will simply start asking questions the Confederation doesn't need to answer. So the negative entity is invited into it. So the same way happened here. We know this from Moses when we talked about him, and he had some distortions that caused the Yahweh, let's call hijacking, or simply interfering with the communication, with the original Yahweh. So that's what happened here. And in the same sense, when they created these larger bodies, these giants, which I don't think there were giants, maybe that some of them were giants, but to me it's just the configuration that they did in the human body to create larger bodies that could be a lot more receptive to the law of one. And their intentions were to basically create a more harmonious, I would say, people that can understand and teach the law of one easier than other people. Once again, this all seems like I'm not going to say a quick patch, but a way to accelerate the process of ascension here. And they failed because the Orion group, we'll see what they did. So let me not get ahead of myself. So Don says, Well, was Yahweh then of the Confederation? Here we go. Yahweh was of the Confederation, but was mistaken in its attempt to aid. Don asks, then Yahweh's communication did not help or did not create what Yahweh wished for them to create. Is this correct? Ra says, the results of this interaction were quite mixed. Where the entities were of a vibrational sum characteristic which embraced oneness, the manipulations of Yahweh were very useful. Wherein the entities of free will had chosen a less positively oriented configuration of some total vibratory complex, those of the Orion group were able, for the first time, to make serious inroads upon the consciousness of the planetary complex. Because what happened was, like I said before, they created these superhumans, let's call them that. And some of them actually contribute a lot into the law of one. But it only takes a few to ruin everything. And those who had some sort of inclination for the negative path, of course they were seduced. They were inviting of the Orion group. And of course they were manipulated to create an elite. So in that sense, they failed the whole purpose because they always get tainted, and that's basically what this means. So let's go into the final question that Don has, and he says, can you tell me specifically what allowed the most serious of these inroads to be made by the Orion group? Ra explains, this will be the final full question. Specifically, those who are strong, intelligent, etc., have a temptation to feel different from those who are less intelligent and less strong. This is a distorted perception of oneness with other selves. It allowed the Orion group to form the concept of the Holy War, as you may call it. This is a seriously distorted perception. There were many of these wars of a destructive nature. And this being the end of the session and being the end of the video, we can see that it's just, we know this is just basic human nature. And I say that with all the property, because human nature has all the rights to make decision to become more negative or more positive. That's the purpose of this reality. Some people may not like that, but that's how it is. And we should understand and accept even those who are negatively oriented. We can see also a couple of things that I want to share here, and the first one is that we can see that there's always the choice of becoming more polarized towards the positive or the negative. The thing is that because we are basically, as Ra says, we're spiritual babies, spiritual children, we have problems sometimes applying the knowledge that we have without love, and more like a imposition on some other people. I am guilty of that myself. Sometimes you can catch yourself trying to explain the things that you are and feeling superior to other people because they don't know what you know. And it's something that is just an energy that exists in the planet, and we just need to be perceptive of that energy. And the more we practice the positive paths of loving, compassion, and understanding, and the better we can serve other people by doing basically the same thing, and without losing polarization ourselves. So this, we can see that we're very sensitive to this. Even those superhumans, as they created, they were very sensitive to this. And of course, the more they knew, the harder, they can, fold a hammer into, other people that could be manipulated with their knowledge. So it became like a nuclear, bomb. It could be used or the nuclear technology. We can use it for great things and horrifying things, like we did in 1945. That's the big thing, to keep in mind from this that I take out. And the other thing is to know that even though in the past we have considered gods, these ETs who are having superpowers and changing things and creating pyramids and stuff like that, I guess it's natural for us humans to see others in higher densities as gods and people to follow and so on. But you can see that they're flawed, very flawed in their attempts to do something. Even the Orion group has failed tremendously to polarize this planet to the negative. So all in all, it seems to me, and this is just my opinion and speculation, that positive and negative entities, Confederation and Orion group, have failed over thousands of years to cultivate this planet, seemingly. We haven't finished this cycle yet, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be a nice ending, I suppose, for humanity. But you can see that that higher density entities, and we're talking about mid-6 density. Ra is about to be harvested into 7 density in just a couple of million years, and you can see that they also make mistakes. The funny thing is that this planet is called a school or a simulation of love and understanding for 3rd density, but it's also a school and a simulation by which other densities, other density beings also have their learnings because of what they try to do here. And this is a great example. The people from Yahweh, the people from Ra, they made mistakes. They created things that were supposed to polarize towards the positive, and they didn't. So just keep that in mind. You know, we're all flawed in this universe. Nobody is perfect. Only the Creator itself. Once you reunite with the Creator, there's simply no experience. Everything gets dissolved and you become the mind of the Creator. So while you're in this universe, make mistakes, learn from them, and just make sure that you are going towards either one of the polarities, positive or negative. I don't really care. Just make sure that you're going towards that polarity and doing the work that you need to do for that. So that's my take, my conclusion. As always, thank you so much for watching this and sharing this beautiful information of the raw material with me. I enjoy doing this a lot. Session 19 is going to start a different line of questioning about 2nd density and 3rd density and so on. Graduation from 2nd density. It's going to be fabulous. So I really encourage you to watch session 19 because I'm going to have a lot of fun talking about all this stuff, which is really cool. Again, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and sending you all my love like every video. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.